The grand hall of the Valcor Empire stretched before Captain James Mitchell like a cathedral carved from living crystal, its walls pulsing with bioluminescent veins that cast dancing shadows across the assembled court. He stood at the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by hundreds of alien dignitaries whose skin shimmered in shades of violet and silver, their elongated forms draped in ceremonial robes that seemed to flow like liquid metal. James had traveled 3 months through the void between stars to reach this moment, carrying with him the hopes of Earth's fledgling interstellar government. The Valcor controlled 17 star systems and held the keys to trade routes that could transform humanity from isolated newcomers into legitimate players in the galactic community. Everything depended on this first diplomatic contact. The princess entered through the eastern archway, and the murmuring crowd fell silent. Princess Thala was young by Valcor standards, barely 19 in Earth years, yet she carried herself with the rigid formality of someone born to absolute authority. Her silver skin caught the light as she moved, and the crystalline crown upon her head refracted it into 1,000 tiny rainbows. 4 advisors trailed behind her, their expressions carefully neutral. James bowed deeply in the manner he had practiced aboard his ship, extending his arms forward with palms up in the traditional Valcor greeting of respect. He had spent weeks studying their customs, memorizing the intricate protocols that governed interactions with royalty. When he straightened, he met her eyes and offered a carefully practiced smile. The princess stopped 10 paces away, her gaze sweeping over him with the clinical detachment of someone examining an interesting specimen. Her advisors arranged themselves in a semicircle behind her, their postures rigid and formal. "You are the human envoy," she said, her voice carrying easily through the acoustics of the chamber. The translation device in James's ear rendered her words in crisp English, though it could not quite capture the undertones he sensed beneath them. "I am Captain James Mitchell, representing the United Earth Coalition," he replied, keeping his tone respectful but confident. "I bring greetings from my people and hopes for a prosperous relationship between our civilizations." Thala's expression remained unchanged, but something flickered in her eyes. She walked a slow circle around him, her robes whispering against the polished floor. The assembled courtiers watched in silence, their attention focused on this exchange like spectators at some ancient ritual. "Your people are primitives," she announced, her voice echoing through the hall. "You crawl between stars and ships that barely deserve the name. Your technology is crude, your culture simple, your understanding of the universe laughably incomplete." James felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his expression neutral. Diplomacy required patience, he reminded himself. Many species viewed humanity as newcomers, and first impressions could be overcome with time and demonstration of capability. "We are a young species," he acknowledged, "but we are eager to learn and to contribute what we can to the greater galactic community." The princess stopped in front of him again, tilting her head in a gesture he had learned indicated dismissal or contempt. "Contribute? What could you possibly offer that we would want? Your world produces nothing we cannot synthesize better ourselves. Your art is derivative. Your science is centuries behind ours. Your very presence here is a courtesy we extend out of amusement rather than necessity." The words hung in the air like thrown knives. Around the chamber, the Valcor courtiers remained perfectly still, their faces betraying nothing. James realized this was a test of some kind, a ritual humiliation designed to establish hierarchy. Every species had such customs, he knew. The strong demonstrated dominance, while the weak submitted. "Your Highness," he began, keeping his voice level, "I understand that humanity may seem insignificant from your perspective, but every civilization was young once. The Valcor themselves must have begun somewhere, learning and growing over time." Thala laughed, a sound like chiming bells that somehow carried mockery within its musical tones. Do not presume to lecture me on history, human. My people mastered faster than light travel when your ancestors were painting on cave walls. We built cities among the stars, while you fought with sticks and stones. You are children playing at civilization, and children should know their place. She moved closer, close enough that James could see the intricate patterns etched into her silver skin, ancestral markings that denoted lineage and achievement. I have read the reports about your species, she continued. You are violent, tribal, barely able to govern your own world. You wage wars over imaginary lines and invisible beliefs. You poison your own environment and squabble over resources like animals over scraps. James felt something shift inside him, a fundamental reassessment of the situation unfolding with cold clarity. This was not a test. This was not diplomatic posturing or cultural misunderstanding. This was genuine contempt, delivered with the casual cruelty of someone who believed absolutely in their superiority and felt no need to moderate their disdain. You come here begging for trade agreements and cultural exchange, Thala said, her voice rising slightly. But what you really want is for us to elevate you beyond your station, to grant you legitimacy you have not earned. You want to skip the centuries of development and struggle that forged the great civilizations of the galaxy. You want us to hand you the fruits of our labor because you managed to stumble into space. She paused, and in that silence, James heard the unspoken truth beneath her words. To her, humanity was not a potential partner or even a worthy rival. Humanity was an annoyance, a curiosity at best, something to be tolerated or dismissed, but never respected. Your presence insults this court, she concluded. It insults me personally. That we must entertain diplomatic overtures from a species so far beneath us is a testament to the excessive mercy of my father, the Emperor. If the decision were mine, we would have never responded to your initial transmissions. Jane stood perfectly still as her words washed over him. He thought of the 3-month journey, of the hopes invested in this mission, of the thousands of hours spent preparing for this moment. He thought of his crew waiting aboard the ship, of the diplomats back on Earth who had drafted countless proposals and offers. He thought of all the compromises and concessions humanity had been prepared to make to earn a place at the galactic table. And he thought of his own dignity, and the dignity of his species. The silence stretched as he looked at the princess, really looked at her, seeing not a potential ally, but someone who would never view humanity as anything more than amusing primitives. No amount of trade or cultural exchange would change that fundamental contempt. No. Demonstration of capability or goodwill would bridge the chasm between her perception and reality. James had been soldier before he became a diplomat. He had fought in the resource wars and commanded missions into hostile territory. He had learned when to negotiate, when to compromise, and when to recognize that some situations allowed no productive outcome. This was one of those moments. He took a single breath, centering himself. Then, without a word, he turned his back on Princess Thala. The court erupted in gasps and horrified whispers. To turn one's back on Valcor royalty was an unthinkable breach of protocol, an insult so severe that it bordered on declaration of hostility. The advisors stepped forward, their faces showing shock for the first time since the meeting began. But James did not care. He walked toward the entrance with measured, unhurried steps, his boots clicking against the crystal floor. Each step took him farther from the princess, from the contemptuous court, from the failed mission and the collapsed hopes. "How dare you?" Thala's voice rang out behind him, shrill with outrage. "You will turn and face me. You will apologize for this disrespect." James continued walking. The massive doors of the hall loomed before him, guards stationed on either side, looking uncertain about whether to bar his path. He met their eyes with calm determination, and something in his expression made them step aside. "Stop him," the princess commanded. Guards, seize him. But the guards did not move. Perhaps they sensed something in this strange human's bearing, some quality that gave them pause. Or perhaps they simply recognized that this was a diplomatic matter, and not their place to interfere. James reached the doors, and they opened before him, revealing the corridor beyond. He stepped through without looking back, leaving behind the glittering court and its contemptuous princes. Behind him he heard Thila's voice raised in fury, demanding explanations and punishment, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking. The walk back to his ship took 20 minutes through the orbital station's corridors. James passed other Valcor citizens who stared at him with a mixture of curiosity and concern, word of what had happened spreading with digital speed through their communication networks. He ignored them all, his mind already moving forward to what came next. When he reached the docking bay, his first officer met him at the airlock, her expression questioning. James simply nodded once, an understanding flashed across her face. "Prepare for departure," he said quietly. "Plot a course for Earth." As the ship detached from the station and turned toward home, James stood at the observation window and watched the Valcor station recede into the day.